On this episode, I just want to get my blinker to blink. Stupid thing. So the main tools I'm going to be using today is an electrical tester. This one is from Autel Diagnostics, called a Power Scan, or you can get these from Power Probe also. These are nice because I actually can connect this directly to the battery. It gives me 12-volt power, but it also gives me the ability to apply power and to be able to check grounds directly to the battery. So when I'm testing things, I can actually apply power directly to it, and that way I know if it's working or not. So what we're going to start with is checking to see if we have electrical power at the socket itself to be able to see if we have power there or if we have to go back farther. So this should be easy enough. I'm just going to turn the parking lights on and see if I have power at the connection. Ground, nothing, ground. So currently I have no power at this connection. That means I need to go back further to see at my next junction connector if I have power there. If I have power there, I know it's within the wiring harness somewhere. If I do not have power there, I gotta go back farther to the turn signal switch. As I follow this wiring harness down the fender, I come to this connection right here. We're right next to the ABS pump and right underneath where the cruise control is. So this is my closest connection to my wiring harness. So at the factory, this is the connection that has all the wiring coming out of it. So we're going to check to see if we have power here at this one. So there's two wires that we're going to look at. We're going to look at the brown and the black with yellow lead. Those are the two that are coming out of my connection for my turn signal bulb. So we're going to see if we have power there. Instead of taking that pack apart, which because it's kind of hard to get to, I'm going to use one of these guys. This is called a back probe. It's basically just a little penny nail connected. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to shove it into that pack to try and figure out if we have power coming out of it. .8 volts, that's battery voltage. So I do have power coming to the parking lamps. Now we're going to check to see if I have it going to the flashers. So I have voltage going to the flashers, and I have voltage going to the marker light. So now I know that my issue is somewhere between this connection and my light socket. So let's start digging into that. Here's my wiring harness. This is my marker light that goes into the fender flare, and as you can see, my fender flare is missing. I took that off going through a tunnel at an off-road park, and it was never to be found again. So I'm guessing that this is pretty broken up, and the reason I say that is as soon as I opened up this harness, these two wires are broken off to where this marker light used to be. So when it got separated, I'm guessing that there was a lot of pressure on this wiring harness to break it apart. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this wiring harness open and start tracing some wires back to try and figure out where the broken wire is or where the bad connection is. When you're taking harnesses apart, slow and steady wins the race. If you start cutting real deep into this, you're going to start cutting into wires, and then you're going to have more issues than what you started with. So make sure that you're taking your time to go through these. I have no idea where all this mud came from. It's not like I've ever been up to the headlights in muddy water before. So here's my first sign of something wrong here. Let me see if I can get you closer. The guy that I bought this from, he just absolutely loved Scotch locks. So Scotch locks instead of using a butt connector or soldering or using a proper style connector, Scotch locks actually go in and cut the sheeting on the wire and put a little blade that slices through both sides of the wire. So you're actually cutting the wire when you're using these Scotch locks. And they don't like moisture. I mean, look at all the dirt that is in this harness. And there, that wire rotted, just broke right out. So Scotch locks are the devil. The devil, you hear me? Don't ever use Scotch locks. Ugh. This wire right here is completely rotted out, and actually it splits all the way up, and so that is just full of dirt and corrosion and all kinds of nastiness. Let's get that crap. Let's cut that junk out. I'm going to cut these Scotch locks out and get rid of all this junk wiring. Right now, I don't have any fender flares on it. I do have plans to put some new ones on, but I can always tie into these later on. I just got to get this junk out of the way so I can at least figure out where I'm going. Okay, so I've turned my blinkers on and I have my parking lights on. I've got rid of all the wiring that basically was cluster effed in there. And we're going to put our test on there and see where we got. Power on and off, so that's my flash. And consistent power, so that is my parking lights. So this one here is another ground that goes to what used to be my marker light. So now I know that I have power here, I have my blink there, and on my connection, let's make sure I have ground. I got it all. So now I can wire those back together and get rid of this cluster crap. Somebody needs to be punched in the face. I'm not a big fan of butt connectors. They work, but you get moisture in there. And this is an excellent area to get moisture. So I don't like using them. Now there are butt connectors that have shrink tube that you can use. Those are better. But here's the best option that I can recommend. These are from Waytech Wire, and these are solder in the center and shrink tube on the sides. So I'm going to get the best of all worlds. I'm going to be able to solder these wires together and shrink them so I don't have to worry about moisture getting into that connection. So this is what we're going to use. The way that we use these is pretty easy. I'm going to slide on the shrink solder connector. Make sure that all my wires go in the same direction. I'm going to slide the two loose wires together, pinch them down, and then slide my connection over the top. That solder should be right in between those two wires. I'll grab my little heat gun here. Make sure we got fire. And then we're just going to shrink down the tube first. I like to shrink the tube down first because it kind of holds everything together, but also it will force the solder to go into the wire instead of just falling out the end whenever you heat it up. Now we're ready to melt the solder part of it. As you melt the solder, the shrink tube shrinks at the same time, so it really pushes that solder into those wires. It's a pretty slick setup. Here's the moment of truth. Plug it in and will it light? Let's find out. Yay! Now I just got to clean up all this wiring, tape it up, put it back into some wire protector, and we'll be all set. There you have it. Mr. Blinky's blinking again. It was a simple fix, just tracing wiring. So you got to make sure that you're checking for power, checking for ground. Don't use Scotch lock, and make sure you're using a good waterproof connection when you're putting it back together. Click like, subscribe. See you next time.